made in the spring of 1946 and records life in rural Britain. The idea was to capture on film how the countryside was changing as the nation underwent great social and economic change. It was called 24 Square Miles, a record of how people lived, their work, homes, education and entertainment. The film's makers, the Central Office of Information, decided to focus on an area of 24 square miles in North Oxfordshire and chose the broadcaster John Arlott as narrator.
There is nothing very outstanding or individual about this area. It is typical of the countryside, where things change slowly.
And today, little has changed at the farm that featured in the original film, Mead Farm in Barthard St John in North Oxfordshire. In 1946, when the 24 Square Miles crew were filming, it was run by Albert Woolgrove. The methods he used then had altered little over the years, but he was aware change was in the air.
It needs a bit of money to modernize a place like this. I've a good yard down here by the house, roomy, with enough buildings for all I need. Breeding for beef as I do, milk production is only a sideline. We still use the old bar for milking, and the few cows I keep don't call for any mechanical milker. My cowman can manage them all right on his own.
Filming on the farm took 5 days to complete, but as Albert's son George explains, the film crew hadn't finished with him yet.
He wrote the, what do you call it, the script. And then he went to London and it was recorded there, and that's as far as I got. But he was rather worried because you will have noticed that he was more or less but he was a big smoker. And he had a gruff voice and he had to keep clearing his throat, but they assured him that they could take that part of it out, and which of course they did.
George also appears in 24 Square Miles, hard at work on a tractor. Like his father, he had some apprehensions about the filming, especially being told to do things several times over for the benefit of the film crew.
A little bit fed up, I think, if I was honest. Because, as I say, they came and if we could have just gone and done one strip off the field and finished, fair enough, but when to be sent back and do again. And then on that particular shot, I had a prisoner of war on the drill, and he turned around and waved at the camera crew, and of course that was scrubbed out, so that didn't help matters at all.
The POW, a German called Adolf, managed to restrain himself from waving in the end, and the film crew did get their shot. Today, George is still going strong, giving his son Robin a helping hand with the ploughing. And much of the farm is unchanged too. The old yard near the farmhouse is still there. And the old barn covered with its First World War tin roof. 9 miles west of Mead Farm lies the village of Hook Norton. Its tiny independent brewery also appears in 24 Square Miles. The Clark family have been brewing beer here for the past 140 years. Bill Clark was in charge in 1946. He made beer the same way as his grandfather had. And today it's brewed just the same way. Bill Clark's son David literally following in his father's footsteps. The whole brewing process takes 10 days from start to finish. Finally, the beer is piped into barrels, which go down to the cellars for storage before delivery. When business was good, the brewery employed 20 people. Today, 35 local people work there, making 3 times as much beer a week. It sells to pubs all over the country, as well as the 35 owned by the brewery. David Clark says little has changed since his grandfather's day.
Nothing's really changed. The brewing process is just the same as it was all those years ago. You still use the horse and dray. I still remember going out on that, delivering around the village as a boy. That's something we've gone back to, because now we have a horse and dray and we still use it around the village.
It's a different story just up the road, where a big ironstone quarry used to be. Now you wouldn't know the works had once been there. It's almost as if Hook Norton Brewery were locked away in a time warp. Even in the heart of the brewery, the steam engine which runs it is still there. While not far away at what was once Bloxham railway station, the steam era is long gone. Now it's hard to imagine a train pulling out of here. And just as the train gave way to the motor car, so the countryside life chronicled in 24 square miles was changing forever. Cottages are typical of the homes in the 40s documentary. They were dotted throughout the 19 villages in the 24 square mile area. The idea of the film, made by the Central Office of Information, was to paint a picture of the daily life of people in the countryside and the problems they faced. The film made local celebrities of several people who were chosen to feature in it. One of them was a housewife, Louis Harper, who lived in the village of South Newington.
When I first came to live here, this room ran right through to the back of the house. But my husband put up a petition. So we have a small room at the back where we can have our meals, and where I have an oil stove for most of the cooking. This room leads into the scullery, where there's an open range. I do some of the cooking on this, and use it for heating water for washing, and for the copper. In the far corner of the scullery, there's a door leading to the stairs. They go straight up into one of the bedrooms. The bedrooms have small windows level with the floor and no ceilings. They're open right up to the timbers of the roof, and it's no end of a job trying to keep the place clean.
For years after, Louis Harper continued to struggle to keep it clean. It wasn't until 1974 that the house was modernised and ceilings put in. But her daughter Edna remembers her mother's constant battle to keep the bedrooms in order.
Mother for many years had difficulty in getting them clean. She had ladders and broomsticks and poles onto the broomsticks, which she had to climb up the ladders and try to get to the top of the roof of the beams to get the cobwebs and everything down.
Few homes in the area filmed had electricity. They relied on gas lamps for light or candles. The candlestick to light the way to the old outside privy at Exeter Cottage is still upstairs. Louis's granddaughter has less than fond memories of nighttime visits.
I think the worst thing I used to remember was the outside loo, because you used to have to, if you wanted to go to the toilet in the evening or night time, get your lantern out and up you go and sit there with all the cobwebs and all the strange shadows.
The cottage still looks very much the same from the outside, but inside it's greatly changed. The old sitting room and scullery are now one big sitting room. And the old kitchen next door is now a hallway come dining room. Only a few villages had piped water in their homes. Most, like Louis Harper, had to fetch water for everything from baths to washing dishes and get rid of it outside, as the film's narrator John Arlott explains.
In most cases, having a piped water supply means nothing more than standpipes set up here and there, from which water has to be carried to the houses. In the villages without supplies, water for all domestic purposes is fetched from springs, from wells, and in a few cases, from streams.
But as he goes on to explain, some of the newer council houses weren't much of an improvement.
They have sinks, but no taps, and waste pipes emptying into a pail. The lavatory is inside, but it is still only a bucket.
Today, apart from some obvious signs of 20th century living, this house in Tadmarton hasn't changed much on the outside. But when its current owners moved in 1970, the kitchen was still very much the same.
When we first moved up, there was an old stone sink and a cold water tap, no hot water. And since then, they've put us a proper one in with the hot and cold water, running water. There was a stone copper that you lit the fire underneath. Never ever used it, so we pulled that out.
Yet houses like Jill's were among the most modern in the area at the time the film was made.
There are more modern grates, making cooking easier. There are built-in cupboards and shelves, larders, and bright and fairly spacious sculleries, usually with a built-in copper.
Now it's hard to believe that half a century ago, piped water, sewerage, and bathrooms complete with toilet and bath were luxuries many didn't have. But these were some of the more welcome changes following the end of the Second World War, which were transforming life for people living in the countryside. A game of darts at the local pub, just as much a favourite way to relax at the end of the day 50 years ago as it is now. The only big difference is that all the men are wearing hats and the complete absence of women in the pub. Perhaps they were all at this well-attended WI meeting, where not only hats, but coats and fur stoles seem to have been the thing to wear. These scenes are a record of the way people living in the countryside enjoyed themselves in their leisure time in 1946. They were filmed for a documentary, 24 square miles, shot in an area that size in North Oxfordshire. It was made by the Central Office of Information as a record of country life. For many young people, one of the best ways to socialise was in the Young Farmers Club, which held regular meetings and trips to nearby farms. Today at the Wickham Arms in Sibford Gower, a group of those former young farmers get together for a game of darts and a chat. They all appeared in the film, which is an unusual record of part of their youth, even if there were some apprehensions about the filming. Rita Butler appeared in several scenes on her family's farm.
I can remember it was very exciting, people from London coming down, and I can remember them coming on the farm and my father giving his interviews and all the bits that I had to take part in.
While everyone agreed the changes in living standards since the film was made were for the better, there was some nostalgia for farming as it was when they were young.
It was very hard work, but fun because farmers all helped each other and we all shared the work, you know. Major operations, farmers would come and you'd all do it together, and then you'd go to other farmers and help them, which was really lovely because we were all working together. Now, of course, it's mechanised and there's one man in a tractor and that's it, you know.
That sense of solidarity was reflected in the Young Farmers Club get-togethers. Wynne Stewart and her husband Peter are proof that the club was something of a dating agency for its members.
The Young Farmers Club movement did, I suppose, become the matrimonial agency for a great many farmers' sons and daughters. Yeah. And, well, it all helped the process. It might have been there all the while, but it certainly speeded it up.
Some of the scenes in the film of people at play seem almost comical now because of their seriousness, though harsh lights and cameras could hardly have been conducive to a relaxed atmosphere. Dancing was obviously popular. The film crew covered a YWCA dance, a band dance and folk dancing.
A lot of people aren't there anymore. One of the girls on there I used to dance with quite a lot in those days, but yes, it brings back a lot of memories, and the time seems to have just gone quickly.
Graham Butler's younger brother Cliff was still at school when 24 Square Miles was made, but was also a member of the Young Farmers Club.
I think we thought we were fairly sort of modern people in those days. Looking at the film now, it looks terribly dated, and we didn't realise how primitive conditions were. But in those days, we thought we were quite modern and technologically advanced people, and life was good. We felt sorry for the people that lived in towns.
Going into town for entertainment usually meant a dance or the cinema in Banbury. The pictures are long gone here, replaced by the inevitable bingo hall. The marketplace, always somewhere to catch up on the gossip as well as buy groceries, is still there. Many scenes from the film are remarkably unchanged. Bloxham High Street is much the same in 1992 as 46. And further west in the village of Swaycliffe, The scenes of the church and cottages opposite, then and now, are almost interchangeable. Yet in the near half-century since 24 square miles was shot, the horse has been replaced by the tractor and the train by the car.
There's been such enormous changes, I can't believe there's going to be the same sort of changes in the next 50 years.